Radio Dawn.
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a warm welcome. You're listening to Radio Dawn 107.6 FM live transmission, and I'm your host, MASHAL Tariq. You must be wondering what I'm doing here today at this time, and it's an exclusive interview today with Dr. Paul Reed. Okay, about Dr. Paul Reed, let me just introduce. As you know, we always line up our shows with some inspiring discussions, meaningful connections, and very important topics we bring for you always. And Dr. Paul Reed is, he's a CEO of he's a CEO of Celtic Biotech, and to share his insights today, he is going to join us. He'll be live on Radio Dawn YouTube channel as well as an on air for us. And first of all, I would really like to thank you, Dr. Paul, for joining us.
My pleasure, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Paul. Can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. But your sound is a bit feeble. I just want to check the sounds are okay.
Is that any better?
Yes, it's a little better. But if your mic, it could be a little louder.
Hey, let me try. Hang on a second. Apologies.
All right. So, our listeners and to the audience who are, while Dr. Reed is adjusting his mic and everything, I would just let you know what we are about, the subject we're going to talk about. It. This is a Cancer Action Week of 2025 and CB24, a breakthrough in a cancer treatment. So as a Cancer Action Week 2025 highlights advancements in oncology, CB24, a novel cancer therapy developed by Dublin-based Celtic Biotech stands out, and utilizing the power of snake venom, which is quite surprising, and we will hear more about it from Dr. Paul Reed. This experiment drug offers new hope for patients with aggressive cancers, particularly non-small cell lung cancer, NSCLC. Now, that's a medical terminology which I will ask when Dr. Paul Reed is with us on here. So, founded in 2003 and revitalized in 2022 through EU Accelerator grant funding, Celtic Biotech was inspired by the survival of close friend, of course, founders Paul and John Reed. After witnessing the effectiveness of crotoxin, an experimental venom-based treatment, they established Celtic Biotech to advance venom-derived therapies. Their flagship drug CB24, sourced from South America rattlesnakes, and targets cancer cells while sparing healthy issues. So, welcome, Dr. Reed, once again on our show. And thank you for joining us on Radio Dawn 107.6 FM. We are live right now on air and on YouTube channel where people can see us. So, before we dive in, could you briefly introduce yourself? Of course, most of the people know the project and the work you're doing for the community and for the humanity. So most of the people know about you, but briefly introduce yourself and your work in oncology, please.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me. Hopefully the sound is better. I am a researcher in snake venom. I am a PhD researcher. I got my PhD actually Imperial College in London. When I was involved in that research, we got in touch with the National Cancer Institute, National Institutes of Health in the US. They had been testing snake venoms for cancer activity, and they shared the information with me. And I was interested in that research. I actually had reviewed all the data that was available for that, and I subsequently used this rattlesnake product, CB24, to treat a friend of mine with terminal cancer. And it cured him. He's been cancer-free now for about 18 years. And this
Oh,
confirmed all the prior scientific reports.
okay.
And it was this experience, his experience, that motivated my brother and me to start the company.
All right. Okay. It's sounds quite interesting and surprising, but how you got an idea? Just it was like just as a kind of incident, or how you got an idea just just to experiment on a rattle snake or venom you was as you mentioned.
Well, snake venom has been used in therapeutics for even centuries.
Mm,
A lot of it's been developed in the East. India and China use snake venom a lot in the
yeah.
traditional medicines. I'm sure you know that. Cobra
Yes.
venoms, which are very common in India, Pakistan, and in southern
Right.
China, have had a
Mm,
lot of use, especially for
mm.
pain killing.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but part of that research kind of triggered the activity of looking at venom in South America, and they chose to look at cancer, and it demonstrated positive effects in both in the lab and in animal models, and
Mm,
that's kind of what led us to where we are now.
all right. Okay. So, when you're doing your research and all, and with the snake venom and all, so we want to know that what type of cancers, because you know that we have different types of cancer. So, what types of, or it is for the cure for all type of cancers. So, what type of cancer does this therapy target, and how effective has it been in trials? So, as you have given an example of your friend, but how effective it's going to be in so far.
The drug we've tested against a lot of different cancer cells. Primarily, it's for solid tumors. So diseases like leukemia, lymphomas don't really respond well to treatment. But
Mhm.
we've seen positive effects in people with lung cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer, brain
Mhm.
cancer. So primarily solid tumors that are aggressive.
Okay.
It doesn't work against benign tumors because benign tumors are not differentiated enough from normal cells for the drug to recognize it.
Mhm.
Uh, but if we look at the efficacy, Celtic Biotech didn't invent this drug. We basically decided to pick it up after research in South America in 1997 and 2002 had
Okay.
shown that there was clear potential for the drug in cancer. They did clinical trials and found that approximately 10% of the patients they treated, there was about 70 patients, were actually cleared of the cancer.
Mhm.
And this was not under non-optimal conditions. But these companies were unable to finish the job, and we decided that we would like to try and do that. So we, along with their supporting oncologists in Ireland and France,
All right.
decided to move forward and improve the protocols and see if we can get even better results.
All right. That's really interesting, and if it's saving the humanity, because the cancer right now is such it's a serious illness, which and it's really depressing, isolating, and of course people are scared of losing their lives. So it's such a movement or action you have come up with, or the ideas saving human lives and human people. So what challenges did Celtic Biotic face during this transition from research to clinical trials? Have you faced any challenges on this?
Well, it's always a challenge. We probably had three main issues.
Mhm.
Credibility here in the West, doctors don't like snakes. They have an automatic
Yes.
association with snake oil,
All
and so
right.
even if the science is good, they reject it. The other
Mhm.
issue we had was sourcing the venom. The snakes we use are indigenous to South America. They're quite small, so we had to
Mhm.
develop our own snake colony, and we have them housed at Kentucky Reptile Zoo in Kentucky in the U.S., who
Mhm.
breed the snakes and milk them for us.
Okay.
Then the last one was funding. Finding the funds to do that. In fact, my mother was the actually financed the start of our clinical trials because she wanted to help because my dad died from lung cancer.
Oh,
But that funding
so
battle
sorry to hear that.
continues. Yeah, well,
Mhm.
thank you. But we've been invigorated by a grant from the European Horizons Cancer Program, and I think that'll help us complete the next phase 1 study we want to do, and set us up to move into phase 2s.
Yeah. You're absolutely right when you have mentioned about the challenge, and you might face this in most of the community and all, because so many people are rigid towards that they will have a second thought of, but when it comes to saving their life, of course, they will have a second thought, because snake oil, and as you mentioned, is people are rigid towards it, and like most of the doctors you mentioned are rigid to have it on. Yeah. So, how does this CB24 compare to the traditional chemotherapy in terms of side effects and efficacy? Words.
Well, side effects of chemo therapy
Mhm.
and radiotherapy are notorious. A lot of people are afraid of those, and generally these drugs don't have a real, significant benefit to the patients.
Okay.
With that, you have to, struggle with hair loss and fatigue,
Yes.
nausea, and all the symptoms that go with it.
Yeah.
Our drug CB24, using our novel dose escalation protocol, has shown minor side effects. You
Hmm.
don't lose your hair. You don't feel sick. You're not fatigued. In fact, patients can function. They can go back to work, and they have a quality of life, which is very important to us.
Right. So, have you experienced anything? This is a question just coming from myself. Like, have you experienced anything like which have you already started with this and with this medicine? And how many, which community do you think is rigid towards it, is not willing to accept it?
Say no, sorry. Say that last part of the question again.
Like which, because we have different regions and community, so which region and community you think is more rigid towards this and not accepting or taking this medicine, or everyone is okay, okay, fine
That's
with it?
that's a very interesting question,
Yeah.
and I'm not quite sure. We're hoping to start the third phase 1 trial. We've done two phase 1 trials already.
Mhm.
And we were already phase 1 trials are primarily on safety, and so we were able to show safety very quickly and make doctors very comfortable with the drug. And so now we're looking at a phase 3, which is really to optimize the protocol to get benefits.
Mhm.
Um, we imagine that there may or may not be issues. Certainly, as we move around the world to present the drug as a therapy with different cultures and religions that may or may not
Mhm.
accept the idea that you could inject snake venom.
Yes,
But
absolutely. This
but
was my main thing about, like, some religions might not
yeah,
accept.
some religions, and so I guess we'll have to run that discussion. Part of our efforts now are we're not going to have enough snake venom to treat the millions of people that have cancer. So we're
Mhm.
putting a lot of effort into creating a synthetic form that does not come from the snake, right?
Mhm.
And this way we would be able to increase the access to the drug.
Okay.
And then I think each culture would have to decide: are we adequately separated from the snake to allow them to use it?
All right. Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it definitely does. So, what basic patient outcome, like from phase 1 trials, which you just mentioned, were most promising beyond safety and pain relief? Like, what was the most promising effect you saw in your trial 1 phase?
Well, in the early trials I mentioned earlier that were done, 97 and 2002, they did show patients were cleared with cancer, but as I said, about 10%.
Mhm.
These protocols were not optimized, so we're focused on optimizing that protocol. We in our last trial we saw patients who were stabilized with the drug in within 30 days.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we were not unable to treat them for longer to assess just how well the drug would respond. But our new protocol, we've been allowed to treat patients for at least 3, if not 6 months, which is the timeline we would need to try and reverse someone's, stage 3, stage 4 cancer.
All right. That's
And
great.
we think we have a good chance of doing something significant, and at least keeping people alive is our minimum requirement.
Yes. 30 days span, the time span you mentioned is quite, it's quite, I must say, it's like you can't, for cancer treatment, 30 days time span is like just like some, well, if illness or something, right?
It's look, we're dealing with patients in phase 1 trials in cancer. You get patients who have failed every other option, right?
Mm.
So we're dealing with the worst of the worst. So to be able to stabilize a patient within about 30 days is
Mhm.
key, because there's a chance now we can keep them alive, right? That's the
Yes.
minimum standard
Yes.
for us. But if we had been able to treat them for longer, we may have been able to see if we could at least reduce the level of the disease and maybe even eliminate it altogether. But we think it takes about 6 months to do that,
Right.
depending on the severity of your disease.
Right.
And we still have
And
to prove. We still have to prove that. That's part of our phase. That's the phase 2 program.
right. Right. And what about this Celtic Biotic plan to balance affordability with accessibility to for patients under compassionate use of these programs? Because this medications where they can't afford, how it's going to be like affordability.
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting question, right? So, uh, the cost of cancer drugs, the newest cancer drug is just generally more expensive than the last cancer drug. So,
Yes.
for these drugs costing more than your house, it, to us
Mm,
doesn't make a lot of sense if you're
right.
trying to treat people, on a large scale,
Hmm.
especially in first world nations. But we
Hmm.
also think in our mind, how do we treat people outside of Europe and USA, in
Yes.
developing nations? And
Right.
so
That's
we're putting a lot of thought into both the concept of creating a synthetic version of the drug, so we don't need to be reliant upon snakes, so we can
mm,
increase scale.
all right.
And we also want to look at the idea of using some technologies that allow us to use less drug, but with the same type of benefit.
All right.
And so that could help us reduce the cost and make it accessible to developing nations who still have the same problem with cancer as first world nations, right?
And in fact, in the developing nations, the government also has to, take a role in this when they are trying to look into the cancer, saving lives of the people. So they may also have to come up and, participate in it for it, something kind of funding or supporting the people who can't afford the medicine. That's what I understand. So, as you mentioned, there are lesser side effects or risk associated with this treatment, right? I'm I just interrupt me because I know your time is precious and you have given us a very short time, and I really thank you for that time. And we have just half an hour with you, and right now in dials we have 12:49. So, I want to know about, like, as you mentioned, there are less side effects and risk associated with the treatment. So, how soon could this therapy become available for all patients, and what are the next steps, our approval processes, or is already been done or executed?
Well, we're not quite there yet. Clinical development requires that we do 3 phases of research. We've
Hmm.
done, we're in the process of doing phase 1, which is the earliest phase to establish the safety profile of the drug.
Okay.
We've got to prove then that the drug actually works, and we need to confirm that data from early research. So we have to do a phase 2 clinical trial.
Okay.
And that, by the time we get to phase 2, we're looking at maybe 30 to 36 months from now. By the time we get that done, if
Hmm.
we can show truly positive benefits to patients, we may get compassionate release, which is a mechanism that's available within the US and the European community
Hmm.
to allow us to provide the drug to patients before it has completed its full development cycle, which would require a phase 3 trial, which is essentially a confirmation of efficacy.
Right.
So, we're still looking at a couple of years. If we can do really well, maybe we can make it available, within the European community, and even the UK,
Hmm.
within 36 months. But that's
Right.
really dependent on how well the trials respond. But we're
Hmm.
very confident that we can do this.
All right. That's quite optimistic, and the time span you've mentioned is um, quite not very long. What I can say. So, this is the it opens like. It opens what I feel. It opens the doors for other nature-based treatments in oncology. That's what I understand now. And as generally talking about the cancer treatment heading in this, and with this thing coming up within the next 5-10 years, are we moving towards more targeted, less toxic therapies or something like that?
Well, I think the desire is to do that. I think natural therapies have kind of generally been ignored,
Hmm.
primarily because it takes a lot of money to develop these type of products. It's not cheap, and so
Right.
companies want to feel that they can own the product that they are developing, and so they put a lot of effort into creating, patentable products. And generally, natural products don't really have a huge patent ability. But the reason why we decided that we were going to pursue this is that there are regulatory mechanisms in place that allow us to protect this investment,
Mhm.
make our investors happier about doing natural products,
Mhm.
because they have programs like orphan drug status and what they call new molecular entity status. And these create barriers to competition,
Right.
much like a patent does. And so it makes the product much more attractive to develop from a natural source.
Mhm.
So I think that may increase. I just people have to get comfortable with that concept.
Mm. Right. So, Dr. Reed, just want to, what message would you like to share with us? Because we are closing towards wrapping up our program. But what message would you like to share with the listeners, especially those affected by cancer or supporting the loved ones through it? Because it's not an easy thing when you're seeing people going through the cancer and you're approaching their death and all, or the phase what they're going through the treatment. So, what is the message you would like to give to our listeners? And
Well, my suggestion. I mean, it is brutal. Having been there with my own family members,
mm,
um, think we are working as fast as we can to kind of get this product out there. We're looking at every mechanism we can think of to facilitate access to the project or the product. I would say, my friend who went through that process with terminal cancer, you've really got to have a fighting spirit. Don't give in to the disease. Use every opportunity you have to improve your diet and improve your quality of life. That may help prolong your life. And maybe we'll meet you at the end when we're ready and to keep you going.
yes, that's the important message. So, thank you for your time, first of all. And finally, where can our listeners learn more about this research and stay updated on the future development and get more information on this?
Well, we always recommend people to go see our website, celticbiotech.com,
Okay.
and also look up PubMed, which is the National Institutes of Health scientific literature resource, and
Mhm.
look up venoms and see what we know about it and what potential they have.
All right. Okay. So that's brings to the end of the today's show. And once again, thank you so much for your time and thank you for sharing this information with us and our audience. Because some of the people are maybe looking at the video and all, but it's such a descriptive information which you have shared with our audience and listeners could help them a lot and study more on this to get the more information. So a big thank you to you, Dr. Paul Reed, for sharing such fascinating insights on this subject and groundbreaking cancer treatment, I must say. And of course, thank you for your time, for our listeners, for tuning in and being a part of this moment for this conversation. Thank you. And I hope you all the best. And I believe your next trip is towards US, right? Back.
Yes, I'm heading back to the US tomorrow. So thanks very much for the opportunity, Michelle, and hopefully we get it done.
Yes, thank you so much. And I hope you have a good stay for your time when you're here. And I wish you good luck for your future endeavor and for the work you're doing for humanity and to save people lives.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Much
Wish you all the
appreciated.
best. Good
Take
luck
care.
and
Bye.
goodbye. Take care. So, our audience, thank you for listening and tuning in with Radio Dawn 107.6 FM. This was Dr. Paul Reed, the CEO of Celtic Biotech, working on the cancer treatment. And he spared the time for us, though he's traveling to US and he has so many interviews and projects and meetings lined up. And with it, that he has made up time for us. A big thank you to him. And of course, we will be back next week. Keep listening to Radio Dawn 107.6 FM. And if you have anything to share with us, And if you have anything to share with us, you can always contact and call us on 0115 or 0115 or send us your messages, or even you can, if you're outside Nottingham, UK, or listening to us from any part of the world, you can send your messages on 073 1213 9494, which is our WhatsApp number, and you can even call us on that. So for now, thank you for listening, and this is Mashal signing off right now, and wish you to see Allah Hafiz and goodbye, and see you soon, inshallah.